guys, and welcome back to the Renaissance Room podcast. And in today's episode, I just want to encourage you guys by just letting you guys know that prayer does change things. You know, prayer really does change things. And I think if you really want prayers that are, well, I can't tell you what to pray for. But what I will say is this. The things that I often ask God for are things to do in my relationship and my family's and within myself, and it's those things that make a significant difference in my life. Those things have made a significant difference in my life, because it's something about that intangible aspect of your prayers being, and like those intangible things, like when you pray for wisdom, when you pray for courage, when you pray for patience, when you pray to be more loving, when you pray, God soften your heart towards a person, or God to do something in your relationships. It's beautiful. And let me say this too, when it comes to relationships with other people, if you're praying about it and it's not, someone you know for a fact, like it may be what you want, but you're not sure if it's God's will and God's not doing it, that's not God's will. You have to dust your feet and let your peace be returned unto you, So I just want to let you guys know that prayer changes things, and when you look up, and because here's the thing about materialism, and when we pray for certain things like that, God will give it to you, but it ain't really going to make much of a difference. Why? Because materialism stuff is so fleeting. It's all so fleeting. You get super excited about this item and then you're on to the next. I think that materialism was really just here for enjoyment. I don't think it was here to provide us with a sense of purpose, meaning, or any level of fulfillment. I really think it's just here for enjoyment. It's here for mere pleasure. Does it aid in us feeling good at times? Yes, it really does. But it's not going to be the sole thing that drives you and really brings you a sense of fulfillment. And I know a lot of people say that, and they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things that I've learned, and that I had to be very mindful of, is I was very privileged growing up. I had a lot of materialistic stuff. I was very blessed materialistically growing up. And so for me, it's no wonder why I'm 25 and I'm seeking meaning and purpose. And I understand the value of relationships and things like that. Because I had those things, those were things that I had met. And even still to this day, it's it's just always been one of those things. If I want it, I know I can get it, and do I feel good when I look good? Absolutely, absolutely. But it was just one of those things to where I didn't go crazy about it because I was never deprived of those things, and so I just kind of wanted to provide you guys with a little bit of context about me, and just why why you may hear me say those things and feel that way. And it makes a lot of sense too. When I think about the rim of my work and having a nonprofit, being a writer, and truly enjoying life in its subtleties, it's because I had those materialistic needs. I wasn't rich. I'm not going, hey, whoa. I wasn't rich, but those needs were definitely met. And I think when you have a background like that, and for a brief moment here, just for a brief moment, I can empathize with rich kids. Well, maybe not rich kids, because girl, we weren't balling out of control. We definitely had, our struggles, but I empathize with people who grow older and they're it's just not, I don't know. I don't even know why I just said that, because honestly, I wasn't rich, so that was a poor example. But it's very defying, it's very defying, and it alters your perspective of the world, and it really grounds you, especially living in today's time when we are being forced to eat, sleep, breathe materialism and luxury. And it's just interesting, I've always said too, when it comes to luxury, when you think about luxury, the standard is white. And so I think it's very unfortunate that a lot of Black people are striving to meet a standard that was never created with them in mind. I've always felt like Black people have had this beautiful sense of richness in our communities and in our culture. And I think that just because, again, I told you guys in the last episode, not having those elders to be that cornerstone, I think in so many ways we've lost that. We don't realize the power of just love. a lot of people talk about mannerisms and things like that, and how, I see people talk about it on TikTok, how certain cultures will walk past you or stand on the back of your heels and things like that. And I think what we take for granted as Black people is that our family lineage and like historically, we were like raised and taught with mannerisms, with respect for your elders, with respect for people, with respect for your body as a young woman. You know what I mean? Like, we were taught to carry ourselves a completely different way. And we grew up having this profound, rich, deep sense of community and culture. And I think that we take that for granted because, again, that's an intangible, right? We know that Black people have been deprived of resources for many years, but I look forward to changing that narrative again, because we have to realize that there are people who have done it. I share the story all the time about my grandparents who were entrepreneurs. My grandfather had a moving business. My grandmother was a seamstress. They owned a church. They owned real estate. My grandfather made his own barbecue sauce. They had a farm. They sold things to Findlay Market. And, when I sit and think about that I mentioned that they had a church. Yes, they had their own church. So to me, it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't really subscribe to the notion that Black people have never had anything. We just didn't have these structures that were white. That wasn't our standard, right? You have to understand, like, people talk about slavery and they don't talk about the mere fact and the reality that Black people really built America, and like Black slaves and African slaves set white people up to live these very luxurious lives. We wrote patents, like we were on the back ends of like engineers doing all these really, really amazing things, and we never got the credit for it. So you just have to always be mindful of that and be mindful of the standard. And I'm not saying, don't take care of your bills, don't enjoy your life, cut back on date nights and dinners. And no, it's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you just have to be mindful that so many of these images, so many of these lifestyles that you're pursuing it's not a reflection of you. It's not a reflection. Like, it's not who you are. If it happens for you, it happens for you. Like, I'm not saying don't strive to be great. Don't strive to have nice things. I'm just letting y'all know that, like, you just have to take things with context, okay? And anyway, back to the basis. Prayer changes things. Prayer really changed. God is so miraculous. I mean, the things I've prayed for, it took a little bit of work too, even for myself. Like, I had to change my mindset, especially in regards to my family. I had to change my mindset. I listened to a TED Talk that was so, like, it gave me such a revelation. She talked about how we have stories, right? And the story could be, oh, I was abused growing up, which is for many of us. So we're going to roll with that. I was abused growing up. This didn't happen to me. My parents were this, and that. And she said, the reason why we don't change our story is because once we turn the page, we get a blank canvas. And here we are in this space with this blank canvas, and it's so new, right? It's so new. And she talked about how in that new story, there's no victims, there are no villains, right? It's just you, and the character hasn't even been developed yet. And when I sat and I thought about that, because I thought about that the other day, and I actually just paraphrased that, I said, wow. And so it makes a lot of sense why we hold on to narratives. It makes a lot of sense why we won't change the narrative and do something different. I realized for myself, honey, I was so bent on being angry. I wanted to be angry because it gave that person in that story a right to be the way she was. It gave her a freaking right to act the way she acted. It gave her a right to always be the victim, and always receive this endless amount of empathy. It gave her the right to never have to look in the mirror and grow up, to be honest. She didn't have to grow up. Like, it gave her the right to so many different things. Like, being the victim and just holding on to past hurts and pains, it gives you so many rights. It gives you the right to be an alcoholic. It gives you the right to smoke a bunch of weed if that's what you want to do. Okay? And it gives you a right to never even try. So change your story and pray, because prayer changes things. And you deserve to fly. Love you guys. Have a great day.